Hello and welcome to GG Weekend Watch, kindly sponsored by BetMGM, with myself, Kate Tracey, alongside Andrew, Matt and Dave Young, to look ahead to the jump season finale at Sandown. As well as that, we've also got a couple of extra flat races chucked into the mix just for the crack at Leicester and Haydock. But of course, our champions will be crowned then on Saturday. Willie Mullins, we're fully expecting to lift the trainer's title. There's still just got enough to play with in terms of the jockey title between Harry Cobden and Sean Byrne. I think there's about 7 that separates them at the time of recording, so still enough to play for there anyway. But before we move on with our previews, a chance to look back at what has been a stellar performance then from the lads up at Ayr last weekend. I mean, start with Andrew. Andrew was kind of knocking his head against the brick wall for a long part of this. Sainsbury finished third, Donny Boy third, El Malka, of course, for all 4 of us, including Matty Sutcliffe then. Gosh, that was frustrating. Zoom third, Coco Mademoiselle, cracking run to finish second, and Thunderball, who again gave a mighty run to finish fourth. Dave had Tommy's Oscar winning at 15-2, Sharjah at 7-1, was so bullish about him. And Malka again, of course, third, and Ottazini in fourth. But we also wanted to mention Andrew's recent form since Sunday, because you have been flying this amount. 14-1 winner, 5-1 winner, 13-2 winner, a 7-1 second, a 3-1 winner, and a 4-1 winner. Only 2 of the 8 selections since Sunday finishing out of the first 2. So Mr. Mount and a big round of applause. And just say my nap went in last weekend as well. But there was no price in the end for Cade Bourbon. I'll still take it at this stage. Now, again, before we move on with our preview, something that we have to flag up, because it has come to our attention that 70% of you out there are not subscribed even to GG. So for all that, we've got all of these viewers, which is great, and we are so happy to have you on board. But 70% of you are not subscribed. So make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all of the content that GG have to bring you on YouTube. Right, now we're finally done with all of that. We can move on with the racing, because we're beginning at Sandown with the 150 Novices Championship final handicap hurdle, 4-year-olds and over 2 miles. Wide open here, Dave. So, I mean, this is a pretty open one to kick us off with.
Yeah, it's a big old field. It's a good looking race, to be fair. There's a few that obviously you go through the race, you look at them individually and try and give them all a bit of a chance. There's a few in here that look like they've got an obvious chance, but they don't look like they've completely and utterly thrown in. So I won't waffle too long on this one. I could have an opinion on every single horse in here, and unfortunately a lot of it's negative in terms of the fact that you got to try and whittle it down, right? We've got 20 runners. There will be extended places up for grabs. I will be using that with the selection that I'll put up. I think Bradan Feasa, right? 4-year-old gets £8 from the elders. We've had 2 4-year-old winners in the last 3 renewals of this race that have come good. His form, right, at the beginning of the season looked quite good, didn't it? And then he seems to have tailed off a tiny bit. But I think his penultimate run at Musselburgh, I believe it was, where he probably didn't run as well as you'd think he would, was his last run before going into his first handicap, which was that Boodles at Cheltenham. So I'm happy to maybe suggest that the Musselburgh run, they weren't trying with everything there. They wouldn't have minded if he got beat as he did. Coming on to that Boodles run, right? The ground at Cheltenham, we know how wet it was. It was really heavy on that first day, and he travelled like an absolute tank for most of the race and then just petered off in the end. As much as he was well beaten 23 lengths, he was 8th, so he had more behind than he had in front. It did show, though, that he can go like it's obviously not a championship race, but like a proper fast gallop. There's going to be horses that are in those Boodles that potentially are going to be top notches down the line. And as much as this is a good Novices Championship final and there are some good horses in it, I don't think it's any harder than what he ran in that type of race, but we're going to have better ground for him. So those first couple of runs at the start of the season at Cheltenham, behind Burdett Road, beating Balboa, that Balboa form got reversed on Musselburgh, as I touched on. I don't think they were really trying, but both those runs were on soft, right? So there's a little bit of rain about for Sandown. It's good. They've watered. It's not going to be rock hard fast, but it will be better ground than it was at Cheltenham. I think his mark of 123 in ordinary company might be about right. However, he does get that £8 weight for age allowance, which I think is going to be enough to see him definitely in the frame. I think he's about 25-1, maybe 4 or 5 places up for grabs in this race. So he would be an each way banker, and Bradan Feasa could probably win the opener as well, I reckon.
Could probably win it as well at that big price in each way plus race with BetMGM, with 5 places on offer as well. So a good price to kick us off with. Mr. Mount, who did you like?
Yeah, fascinating race, this one. I really went down the rabbit hole with this. It's one of those ones you look at, you think, oh, novice handicap, leave me out, put a line through it, move on. But then you look at it, you think, well, we've only had 5 runnings of this race. Every single one was won by a horse who won last time out. Over the 5 runnings, you've had 31 of those. Bet them all, you make a profit of £2.50. If you just went with those age 6 or younger who'd had a run within the last 6 weeks, it's 5 winners from 24. Now you've had the 1-2 last year, the 1-2-3 the year before that, because last year's 1-2 under control beat blatant non-jigger Iberico Lord, the stable mate and in the same owners, and Aidan Coleman strangled the horse, beaten half a length. And the winner hasn't won again since, whereas the runner-up is £24 higher and is clearly the much better horse. But that's an aside. So if you backed horses who were beaten last time out in this race, 0 from 45. That's a bit of a worry for Steel Ally, but he is one I've backed because of the form of that Doyen Quest Newbury win, where he was second by a neck to Doyen Quest that day. The 9.5 lengths back to the third Imperial Saint, who was a winner the other day at Fosslas. Now, all told, the winner, the third, the fifth, and the ninth have all won since. And there's a few horses over the next few days who are running from that race, so it's worth keeping an eye on. So I'll bet Steel Ally each way. Panjari, top weight for Paul Nicholls. Interesting, I think Nicholls has had 3 top weights in this race, first, and second at 22 to 1. So although Panjari never followed up a win, even for his old trainer, if it was in France or Germany, I can't remember, he would have to be of interest. Active Authority was another last time out winner, but he's had 2 goes right-handed, hung left on both occasions and beaten as the favourite 2 to 1 and 5 to 4. So that's a bit of a worry. Secret Squirrel, I give a good chance to. Won at Taunton last time out. Good record in the spring under national hunt rules, 3 from 3 in March and April. And Giza Rockstar, although it was 2 miles, 3.5 furlongs, he won over at Ascot last time. He clearly appreciated the good ground, and as long as they haven't done overdone the watering, he should go well. And Just One Surf, another last time out, win a big price for about 40 or 50 to 1 for the Great Rickshaw. But I'm going to split stakes: Secret Squirrel, if I can say it, and Steel Ally, even though Steel Ally was beaten narrowly last time.
A lot of S's going on there, but yeah, Secret Squirrel. I know, because all you want to say is squeak, quit, squirrel. That's all you want to say. Well, I do anyway, every time. It's such a tongue twister, but Steel Ally and their Hugh Morrison's charge with the beautiful blonde locks that Secret Squirrel had. There's likeable ways then to play that, and with that last time out winner angle, very interesting. Right, we switch attentions to the flat now. The King Richard III Cup Handicap, a 0 to 105 contest. 4-year odds and over a mile at 205 at Leicester. Mubhir is your 11 to 4 market leader here, Andrew. So who did you like in this one?
Yeah, Mubhir was, I think, even money favourite when winning this race last year. That was on his second start of the season after finishing 5th to Migration in the Lincoln the time before. He lacks a run this time, although he has been gelded. And although some of the Haggis horses have been needing the run, he's had plenty of others who have been winning it the first time of outing. And the stable does seem to be getting going now. So you've got to respect Mubhir. We should mention the draw as well. We're on the round course here for a mile at Leicester. But being prominent towards that inside rail is generally an advantage, particularly early season when the ground hasn't been cut up. I'd give half a squeak to Dashing Roger. He's a horse who was only 5th of 7 in this race last year, but that was on his seasonal return. He's had a couple of runs this time. I mean, he was too prominent into the headwinded listed company on Lincoln Day, where the last of 7, well beaten in the Spring Cup at Newbury last time out. Is it the Spring Cup? I get those two confused. But I think returning to Leicester, where other than his 5th in this race, he won his only other start by almost 5 lengths. I think he would have a squeak. The ground's going to be very soft. I'd be against Look Back Smiling. Flattered from off the pace at Doncaster on Lincoln Day, well beaten in the Spring Cup last time out. And Thunder Roar as well. Thunder Roar I see an 8 to 1 into 5 to 1 for this race. But again, any horse who ran well on Lincoln Day on the straight course, coming from off the pace, was arguably flattered. There were so many of them who finished out the back of the telly in the Spring Cup. And Thunder Roar came from off the pace to finish second behind Look Back Smiling. With Look Back Smiling finishing 9th on his next start, I think Thunder Roar could be vulnerable here as well. And the other one I say, Miss Catnip, or sorry, Miss Cantic, that was half interesting as well. But I think I'm just going to be very boring. Go Mubhir, last year's winner. Quick mention of a Big Bear Hug as well. It was one I've put up as a bet the last twice after that eye catcher against the pace bias, against the wind bias at Doncaster on the 23rd of March. He did too much too soon from the front at Bath. Next time went third, and then last time out I put him up as a bet 7-2. He's gone off 6-5 on from 7-2 against. Got beaten half a length into third under a patient ride. There's definitely races in him, but that Nottingham defeat last week was a Class 5 contest. He's up to Class 2 here. He is well drawn in stall 1, so he might just run some sort of race here at a big price. But it's probably going to be hard to beat Mubhir first run after a gelding operation.
Yeah, at the head of the market then, but going to be tricky to beat on the basis of that assessment there. But a good shout for Big Bear Hug, about 16-1 as well. But Dave, we've got a quick turnaround for a whole load of these. 3 of them contesting that Spring Cup handicap from just 7 days ago. So is that a form line you were focusing in on, or are you also looking away from it?
Oh no, 100%. And it's Andrew's mentioned like 80% of the runners, but didn't mention mine. So probably not a good thing with his form at the moment. But Rado Barg, that I tipped up last week, William Buick was on him, wasn't he? He waited and waited and waited. There was a half a gap he tried to go for, but knew he wasn't going to get there, so he didn't want to ruin the horse. And unfortunately, the gap just didn't open up in time for him. So he stayed on. It was sort of like a never nearer type finish, but he wasn't fully ridden out in the finish as far as I'm concerned, because his chance had gone. The ones in front had already gone clear. But he did look like in his stride that he was sort of finishing the same sort of pace as those were. So I think if they had have been able to get a clearer passage early on and be able to get him in front, I still think he would have gone a lot closer in that race.
I think the ground was too quick for him as well, wasn't it? In the end last week, sort of good, even good to soft in places would have been, too lively for him. I think he's a real proper mudlong. Given the amount of rain we've had, I live about 12 miles south of Leicester. It's going to be pretty squidgy on Saturday.
Well, exactly that. And then obviously with the maybe not being able to get the gap type stuff on the quicker surface, there were probably horses that were just able to move their feet a little bit quicker than him in those, like, I guess, like fine margins that are a big handicap. This isn't a big handicap, though, right? We've only got 9 runners in here, so we'll be paying first 3 places unless we get a couple of defections. Look Back Smiling is also entered in the other race that we'll cover, the 245 at Haydock. I would imagine that it would go there, even though it's a shorter price for this. But anyway, back to Rado Barg. Andrew's touched on the fact that the ground is going to be slower here than before. David Egan's back on. I just think if you go back and watch that run from last weekend, you'll be happy to see that this isn't much of a harder race. He's been dropped £2 for that, which looks generous. He's 9-2. I cannot see how he's outside the first 3. Mubhir is probably like a pretty fair price, to be fair, at 11-4. Like Andrew said, was even money favourite for it last year, but bar the first time he ever raced, he's 0-4 after a break, or pretty much first time out. So I know he's been gelded, that could help, but also could be a bit of a hindrance, couldn't it? Thunder Roar, as again Andrew's mentioned, been nibbled. That horse has been well supported the last couple of times. Again, should be right up there in the frame. But I just think Rado Barg is, like I said it last week, God-given certainty for arrest, and I was completely wrong. The market told us that. But I think Rado Barg, there's no way he's not in the first 3, and he can't get himself into traffic problems. The grounds will be better. David Egan's back on top, was third on him on his penultimate start. I think Rado Barg's a right good bet at 9-2. But the fact that we've got 9 runners, I would be playing him each way, but I think he's got a proper chance.
And he is one of our cocktail potential combination horses from last weekend. So we've got a Thunder Roar in here rather than a Thunder Ball or a Thunder Bear, and Dashing Roger in here again.
The Thunder Roar Radabogs.
Yeah, there you go. And every time we've got a race with a Thunder something horse in it. Thunder is a prefix. That's it, right? Cocktail brain switches on. We might get those eventually then with Radabog. That I think we decided was a whiskey type of sounding name element to our cocktail. So we'll wait to see how that transpires as we move on to Sandown. Now, the Grade 2 Oaksey Chase, 5 rods and over 2 miles, 6.5 furlongs. What on earth are we doing with this? 7 runners. Luckily with BetMGM, it's an each way plus race, 3 places on offer even with the 7 runners. But Dave, I mean, who of these wants to win?
Yeah, well, that is the question, isn't it? It's a proper decent race, though. If you take away the betting side of it and you look at it and just think this is going to be one that's going to maybe not one for the ages in terms of like top class horses in it, but we've got some very, very good horses. 4 of the top 5 in here. There's only £4 that split them with the weight adjusted ratings in there, but 2 of those are veterans. We've got Easy Game, who's a 10-year-old, and we've got Al Dancer, who's an 11-year-old. But the thing with this race, right, is Hitman. You've touched on there about whether like their will to win type stuff. They have put first time blinkers on him. You could never really trust him. And when he's vying for favouritism with the real whacker, who probably will appreciate this trip. Obviously, if you go back to his novice form, beating Jerry Colomb looks good, but then also you look back and think, how the hell did Jerry Colomb actually lose that race? His form in Open Company just doesn't match up to what he did as a novice in terms of you'd expect him to have progressed. But this is an easier option for him. So you can see why those 2 are like sort of vying for favouritism. And you would probably say the logical hat would say one of those 2 probably should win it on form, but Easy Game's run at Aintree, right, was way too bad to be true. I know he's got to give weight to everything in here, but I remember a long time ago when Kemboy sort of started to come good, Easy Game battered him twice, giving him weight both times as well on this type of ground. They've gone for cheap pieces. They had loads of options of horses to run in here. I half thought they'd run a steering 4 lines, and I'd love to see him going this way round, but I think they must have looked at this and thought, do you know what, Easy Games is good enough of a dart to throw in here. So it's not a race that I'd want to be heavily invested in. It's very much one I'd want to watch, but I feel like the real whacker maybe just isn't as good as he looked like he was last season, and I think he might just come up short. Hitman will probably come up short by his own admission, and I think Easy Game would be the one that will take advantage of it. So he's about 5 to 1. The other 2 are about 5 to 2-ish. I'd rather have my £1 Freddo money on Easy Game. I wouldn't be getting heavily invested, but I cannot wait to watch it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating race to see, and I think Easy Game was the way I was looking in this as well, in those first time cheap pieces, because like I said, the real whacker, visually he just doesn't look the same horse as he was last year as well. His stride, the way his head is, the way he's not taking his jockey into his fences, he just looks a completely different animal this time around. Hitman I've never trusted, and it served me quite well. So yeah, Easy Game sort of by default then falls next him. But yeah, fascinating to see, Andrew. I won't be having a play in it, but I'm really looking forward to it.
I think there's a really good bet in this race. Not the winner. I don't know who that's going to be. Possibly Easy Game, but Hitman to finish second.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those horses that, with some firms offering horses to finish exactly second, or you can have, 6 straight forecaster exactors, the rest of the field to beat Hitman to second. There's loads of ways you can play it that way. So he's got the blinkers on instead of the usual cheap pieces. He's had 6 goes in Grade 2 companies, finished second on 4 of those occasions, third in another. So expect him to run well without winning. The real whacker, I mean, his chase record in non-handicap company below Grade 1 level, first and second to Capitano. The last 2 runs he's jumped out to his right. He's only gone right-handed, I think, once since coming across from Ireland, and that was when winning at 22 to 1 by 7 lengths at Carlisle a while back. So you could argue that he's going to appreciate going this way round, and gets into a rhythm up front. Could be hard to pass. I mean, I'll put Easy Game up as a bet at Aintree. It was a bit optimistic given the class of the race. But it was the small field that I liked, because he's got a phenomenal record in fields of 9 or fewer runners, 15 wins from 26 starts, plus £20, 98 to £1 stake. His last 5 small field races right-handed have resulted in wins. So the cheap pieces go on. So I thought he'd have a good squeak. GA Law, Galore, whatever you want to call him, I wasn't particularly interested in. Al Dancer is a horse I like, but it's a horse I like to back first time out. In the last 5 seasons, he's won 4 of his 5 seasonal debuts. His second or later starts in the last 5 years, he's 0 from 15. He has been off for a couple of months, so he could go well after a break. He's another who likes to go from the front. So don't be surprised to see him outrun his odds. He's an 11-year-old, but we saw Menorah win this as a 9, 10, 11 and 12-year-old, God bless him. Strawfan Jack is a horse who likes decent ground, but he does, I mean, I know he was third at Cheltenham last time, but he does seem to do all his winning in sort of October time. But yeah, again, not without a chance of, at a big price. A Fantastic Lady, we should mention, third to GG.UK in this race last year. She's a real good ground spring horse, and ran a decent race at Aintree last time, finishing 6th of the national fences to Arizona Cardinal, a horse you might be familiar with. And that was a cracking effort on ground that was too soft for her. I mean, she'd been pulled out of a previous intended engagement because of soft ground, but with it being Aintree, they let her take a chance, and she still ran well despite the ground. So yeah, I like Fantastic Lady to run well at the price, but I think the nap is Hitman to finish second.
That is a good way to play the race after we were debating it. But actually, like I said, surely that's the most straightforward thing. It's just Hitman to finish second in this in the Oaksey Chase and that Grade 2 contest. Who knows? Right now, we've had 3 races down, 3 races still to go in our schedule preview, but we're going to take a little bit of a pause because, of course, it's the jump season finale. So we need to discuss who has been our horse of this season so far. So, Andrew, you've had the whole jump season then to go at. Who's the one that really stood out to you, betting-wise, or one that you just liked?
Yeah, it won't surprise you to hear me say Grey Dawning, winner of the Turners, horse I was a big fan of before that win, given his fantastic attitude and his, he's been very, very difficult to beat outside of his hurdle and chase debut when he needed the experience on each occasion. So he should have beat Ginny's Destiny, but made a Horlicks in the second last at Cheltenham in December. And they were umming and ahhing over whether to run him in the 3 mile Brown Advisory at Cheltenham or the Turners. Because of the ground, they went to the shorter race. They got away with it with the stiff uphill finish. But at Aintree, it didn't work. He was round the inside, 2.5 miles on a sharper track on drying ground, didn't suit. He's run with credit, finishing a 9 and a bit length third to Il Était Temps. But I think next year we'll be seeing him over 3 miles plus every single time, and he will develop into a genuine Grade 1, Cheltenham Gold Cup winner. He likes going left-handed, and he's just, a superstar in terms of attitude. Battles, very gutsy, and I think he's going to run a big race in next year's Gold Cup. Let's hope he gets there in one piece on the back of 4 wins.
Yeah, touch wood then that's going to be the case for Grey Dawning. I think loads of people will agree with you with him. And I mean, Dave, we all love a grey, don't we? But especially then for Grey Dawning as well. But is he the horse you were sort of looking for, or who's been yours?
No, but I think me and Andrew fell on the same page in the alphabet because I've gone for Gary, Gaelic Warrior.
Gary!
What a legend he is. He's one of those almost like a lovable rogue, isn't he? He's been everyone's best friend at the start of the season. Then when they decided to go chasing, he became the enemy. Everyone was thinking, oh, he's a Brown Advisory horse. And then he goes and absolutely hoses up in an Arkle after flopping at the Dublin Racing Festival. I love this horse because I finally forgiven him for that Boodle's defeat. But he's only a 6-year-old, right? He's turning 7. He got an RPR of 172 for that Arkle. Just to put that into context, that sandwiches him in between Duvan and Valtor. Duvan got 170 as his peak as a novice. Valtor got 175. So I know it's a bit mad to say this when he was a Stayers hurdle favourite at the start of the season, but just what a monster Gaelic Warrior has turned out to be. And the fact that he's done it left-handed now, the world is his oyster. King George favourite already. They're touting him for a champion chase prospect at Punchestown potentially next week. He's just a horse that's got a bit of everything, a bit of quirk, but loads of ability. So Gaelic Warrior, definitely the horse of the season for me.
Oh, Gary. Yeah, he has just been something, hasn't he? And the way that he came good at Cheltenham, I was sneaking him on and he readily put me back in my box then. So, yeah, good old Gaelic Warrior. I'm going to go Dino Blue, Princess Dino then, who, of course, I absolutely adore. As everyone knows anyway, anyone just has to look at my Twitter page or at my WhatsApp photo to know exactly how much I love this mare. But she's just taken her form to a whole other level this year. Still do not know how I managed to get her beaten off of a marker 140 in the Grand Annual of 2 Cheltenham festivals ago, but since then she's just gone on and taken her form to a whole nother level. Of course, signing off last season with the 2 wins, but going into graded company, and she's been so consistent, so likable. Grade 3 winner at Naas, went to Leopardstown, beat Gentleman Demi in a Grade 1. No disgrace in finishing second behind El Fabiolo in the Dublin Chase. At Cheltenham last time out, it could have been a different story and a different day, collaring the owner mate of Limerick Lace, but unfortunately wasn't able to do so. So I can't wait to see her at Punchestown as she goes for the Grade 1 Champions People Chase, I think it's called, the 2 mile anyway. Champion Chase there at Punchestown, where she'll be taking on Captain Guinness most likely. But yeah, Dino Blue though, such a consistent, hardy so-and-so, and I just love her. So that was a nice little look back at this season. Again, in the comment section, let us know your own horse of this season, whether or not you've backed them to success or you just like them in general. Do let us know. Now we move on with our preview of this Saturday, and we switch codes again then to Haydock. Now we have a handicap even, 4-year-olds and over, 7 furlongs, 245. Earls, your 100 to 30 market leader, 6 to 1 bar about the remainder here, Andrew. So who wins this one?
Yeah, very possibly Earls. I mean, he just loves the mud. He's basically ground dependent. He was only beaten a nose at the Curragh last time in a field of 16. That was over a mile on heavy going. Back to 7 furlongs. That's not going to be an issue. He's got plenty of form over 7 and even 6 furlongs recently. And Franny Norton coming out of stall 1, so he should run a big race. I mean, the horse I'm most interested here is obviously Chris, or Boardman, as most people know him by, which is one of our regulars. We know he's brilliant. We know he's brilliant in the spring, but he needs a run. He'd have been backable here if he'd had a run in the Lincoln Trial at Wolverhampton, as he sometimes does. But they're using this as a springboard to what I would imagine be success at Chester next month. So look out for our old friend Boardman, almost unbeatable in the spring when he's had a run. He's an 8-year-old now, but yeah, hopefully he finishes sort of 7th here and pops up at a big price at Chester. Of the rest of them, Guido was quite interesting. We know he's a front runner. We know Haydock is a track that it can pay to be on the front end, particularly on this sort of ground. I mean, most of his wins have come sort of later in the season, but he did win in April of last year on good soft going at Musselburgh when well backed. He hasn't won yet here at Haydock. I think he's had 4 goes, but I think he did win, run 2nd and 3rd. I've not looked at the pace sort of scenario here, but if it looked like Guido might get a soft lead, then he'd be on the radar. But I'll probably just be quite boring, go with the favourite Earls, who will love the mud. And they're calling it heavy, and which probably means it's virtually unraceable at Haydock.
Get your flippers out, Earls. Yeah, 7-day turnaround for this one. Gavin Cromwell sending Earls over there for this 100 to 30. But do watch out for Boardman, how he runs here to how he's going to then fare next time out. Dave, did you have an angle in?
Yeah, maybe. Might be the one where I go and make a cup of tea, I think. But it's just good, isn't it? We've got a 7 furlong flat handicap, and I get to talk about National Hunt Racing, because it wasn't that long ago that Gavin Cromwell said, yeah, man, and now is the hour. 2 runners at Haydock when it was sloppy ground like this. So Earls deserves to be favourite for that alone. But I don't know if I want to be betting in a race like this. The one, if we were doing this for a token selection, right, that look back smiling that we've touched on could be in the 205 at Leicester. It's duly entered, right? I think if you look at both those tracks, I don't think Leicester will be off. I know there's been plenty of rain around there, but Haydock would be more in danger of not being about. So you'd think that the Leicester one was the second preference. Massive price, 14 to 1 for me in this, for a horse that does run quite well at 7 furlongs as opposed to a mile. Dropped back the last, I think, 5 runs at 7 furlongs. It's been first in 4 of those, and the one where it came 5th maybe in a big field handicap just fell out the traps. So look back smiling is 14 to 1 at the time of recording. Given the fact that it would be non-runner money back, wouldn't it, because of final decks now if they went to Leicester, I'd prefer look back smiling at this trip of 7 furlongs anyway. So I'd be tempted at 14s to have a little each way play on there. It would be like a little each way Freddo. It wouldn't be anything serious.
An each way Freddo. So yeah, split them in half and yeah, go each way then for that. But look back smiling, which one is he going to go for? Doubly declared, but Davis made the case that you get your money back then, whichever engagement he takes up, and then it doesn't go for. Right, that was Haydock. Back to Sandown now for the Grade 1 Celebration Chase, 5 roads and over a mile 7 at 3 o'clock. We get the matchup between El Fabiolo and John Bon here. Currently, El Fabiolo is the 8 to 11 favourite. John Bon at 9 to 4. Edward Stone, Editor de Jeep, Boothill, Nube Negra, and Elixir de Nuts rounding off the field. So, Dave, which camp did you fall into?
I don't know. Can we have some more time? We should preview this race after it's been run, I think, because that'd be the only way that anyone would have any real confidence in this race, I suspect. I was a bit sad that obviously John Bon didn't run at Cheltenham, because I believe he would have won the champion chase, but we don't know that for a fact. Obviously, his Aintree performance stepped up in trip was really impressive as far as I'm concerned for him. I think his best run last season was this race last year, or he was well back to beat Grenadine as well, like stupidly supported. But I also liked his slower chase run at the beginning of the season. I touched on that. The tricky thing with him is obviously they're watering a little bit at Sandown. We're recording this on Thursday. There could be some more rain before Saturday. If it is like good ground or it's fairly quickish, do you remember when he ran against Calico in that match race? He was 1 to 16, and he actually looked for a moment like he might get beat.
Yeah, that was a great ride on the second, wasn't it? Kind of like rushed him around the outside to take a lead of a few lengths out of him on the home turn.
Yep, and that's what worries me slightly with John Bon on this particular ground, because we know with Edwardstone he's not got too many races left in him at this level, so you'd expect them to be prominent on him. I know Nube Negra is probably just running because the Skeltons want to get runs in there, but him on this type of ground, I know Sandown might not be his place, and you might want to catch him early in the season, but there's just lots of horses that tactically are going to fire a load of pace in here. But the market's got this one spot on, I think, unfortunately. So I'll say if you ran this race 10 times, you'd probably have El Fabio winning it 6 times. John Bon would probably win it 3 times, and then you might get a bit of an upset. So they're priced about right. I will just say, though, right, I probably wouldn't be able to bet them at the prices. But if El Fabio, if for some reason they hammer John Bon like they did last year, and El Fabiolo goes even money or bigger, then I think I'd have to have a reasonable bet on El Fabiolo, because I do think he is better than John Bon. We know that he had those jumping frailties before he made the mistake at Cheltenham. I don't like horses that make mistakes when they're going to Sandown, in terms of, like, I think you could make a mistake at Sandown, even though it might not be the hardest track to jump at. I just think El Fabiolo is better than John Bon at this stage. So he's priced up at the minute about 4 to 5, I think, or mostly 4 to 6. So he's just the right price. It'd be a great race to watch. But if for any reason they hammer John Bon, I would have enough negatives about him on this ground and the 2-week turnaround and the fact that El Fabio is better, that I'd happily bet El Fabio at evens or bigger. But we probably won't get that, so I'll just shut up.
It's so tricky, isn't it? And when you're trying to factor in which horse you'll be backing at their price then as well, that just adds the extra layer into this race. So I'm in total agreement with you, where I think El Fabiolo innately is the better horse. I think that he has the more ability, but finally those jumping issues caught up with him last time out, and you just wonder, of all the tracks to go to, but Sandown then, if that's going to catch him out, if the pace is really put to the race again here. But then John Bon on his penultimate start showed that he can munch a fence. Now he does have his best bud Nico de Boinville on this time around, but dropping back down in trip as well then, Andrew, there are so many layers to this. Like, what do we do?
Yeah, it's tricky, but I think El Fabiolo at 11:08 on is too short. Not just given the last run, but the fact they're actually coming here. They're only coming here because of the the Trainers' Championship. He's one of the last 2 Punchestown festivals. So if they you'd have thought Plan A was to go there. So yeah, with the sort of the Cheltenham blunder fresh in the memory, I couldn't be backing him at 11:08 on. I mean, John Bon, you talk about his jumping, but he's been here 3 times. He's won 3 times, despite making at least 1 error, I think, every time. Edwardstone is another one who's jumping, can't be entirely trusted as well. Editor de Geet could run a race in first-time cheap pieces, perhaps, but I wouldn't want to back him. Nube Negra, we know he goes well fresh on good ground, but he also hasn't got the greatest record here at Sandown. He's been well beaten in this race for the last 2 seasons, I think. Elixir de Nuts wins in I think it's January, February, and never does anything outside that period. You can put a line through him. Boothill's the one I've backed at a silly price. Shame there's not 8 runners, and the 8th runner is not 1,000 to 1. But Boothill, we know, cannot operate on left-handed tracks. I mean, he's got a great record right-handed. I think he's something like 6 from 12 in this direction. His chase record right-handed is something like 4 from 8, and I know he's fallen on his last 2 starts. One of those did come right-handed, but you go back to his novice season, he was second favourite, I think, to beat John Bon when they clashed here. It was like 11-2 on 9-2, and he had unexpected parties, 16 lengths back in third that day when he was beating 8 lengths. So I was thinking of sort of just backing Boothill to win for the absolute upset, and doing some exactors, Boothill to finish second to John Bon in particular, as the pair have finished 1-2 here before. But yeah, going back on a right-handed track, I think Bootill's going to run a big race here with the Harry Fry yard going well.
They are, aren't they? And yeah, not a bad way to play this at all. 40 to 1 hope as well, in case that one of those top 2, which we wouldn't be surprised, does fluff their lines. And if he can finish second or just way outrun his odds and cause the ultimate upset, then Boothill 40 to 1. Not a bad way to go. Right, we sign off with the Bet365 Gold Cup Handicap Chase Premier Handicap, 5 rods and over 3 mile, 4.5 furlongs at 3:35. The defending champ then, Kitty's Light, after such a brave effort 2 weeks ago in the Grand National, is the one who's heading the betting at 9-2, 8 to 1 bar about the remainder, Andrew. So who wins this one?
I mean, Kitty's Light has got obvious claims, particularly after doing best in the British, basically winning the Grand National, apart from the Irish runners. But it's not been a good race to back horses out of the Grand National. Since they made the fences easier in 2015, back all the runners on their next start. Only 19 winners from 290 bets. You made a loss of over £200 to a £1 stake at SP. The expected number of winners was in excess of 26. And so far this year, national runners next time out 0 from 3. Last year, it was 0 from 32 horses running the Grand National. So yeah, I'd worry about the fact that he went to Aintree, even though we know he's won this race last year, particularly when he's 9-2. The one you'd expect me to put up here is Threeunderthurfive, because I've been screaming for the rooftops for years that he's better right-handed. So six goes this way round, 5 wins and a second in the Badger Beer earlier this season. So he's on the radar. The other one is Certainly Red, who was 7th in this race last year. Now, he didn't jump particularly well that day. The ground was softer than ideal. He loves going right-handed over fences. 11 runs, 4 wins, and 6 in the frame efforts. So the only out of the frame effort, that's 7th, being about 17 lengths in last year's renewal of this race, and I think there were 17 runners. So I would say, in the first time cheap pieces, if that helps Certainly Red in the jumping department, and then he's going to run a big race. So I'll go Threeunderthurfive over Certainly Red.
Threeunderthurfive is 8-1 in here, and Certainly Red is 25-1 shot in here as well. In those first time cheek pieces. So Dave, well, Andy's gone for one that we were hoping he was going to go for, and he has managed to justify that. But who did you like? You're allowed 2 stabs as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could have 7 or 8 stabs in this race, to be honest with you. It's one of those. It's got the nature about it where there's lots of horses that you think have got good chances in here. I haven't gone for that many though. I did do some recent trends on this one as well, because I couldn't believe it when I read some stuff on it as well, that all of the last 10 winners had not won a race at Sandown. Normally you think horses for courses, especially when you get to these type of big handicaps, especially staying ones. But there's a few other pointers that come in there as well. So you can check out the GG website to see that there's a cheat sheet on there. But Does He Know ticked all the boxes for the 10-year trends and the more recent 5-year trends. The only one that Threeunderthurfive missed out on the 5-year trends was that he hasn't run inside the last 9 weeks. He's run inside the last 10 weeks. So you could easily forgive him that. So he's obviously got an obvious chance. But as much as his chance is an obvious one, he went up £4 for that Ascot run, didn't he? That was over 3 miles. And there was a wet sail for Rapper, wasn't there, who only gone up £1. If that was over 3 mile fours, Rapper would have finally got the win for the season. So to continue the theme of the season, and he should have been the horse for the season probably, Rapper is 25-1 for this race. And I just think that is stupidly overpriced. So a Rapper is a pretty strong each way fancy. I can understand why he is the price he is, being a bit older, and sometimes he doesn't sort of run so well in a race. He
likes more fields than he only wins in January.
Yeah, that's it. But he fell in the Kim Muir, which is very much not like him, but that might have done him a favour because he didn't have as much of an exertion as he might have done in there. He has got some good form on good ground as well. He's placed 4 times out of 8 runs on good ground. He's had 2 wins on there. One of them was over hurdles, one was over fences. So ground's definitely not going to be a problem with him. The trips, like I say, I think is going to enable him to reverse the form with Threeunderthurfive. Handicap has reweighted it so that he should reverse that form as well. So Threeunderthurfive has the obvious chance, but he's about, I think, maybe 8-1-ish as a general price on Threeunderthurfive, a short 6-1. Rapper, you can get 25-1. So he doesn't take much selling, but obviously regular viewers will know that I pretty much just tip up Rapper every time he runs. But I promise you a win this season, and we're going to get it on Saturday. The other one that I do think from a formy perspective as well, is probably the best handicap horse in this race, is Am I Right, for Henry de Bromhead with Rachel Blackmore. I've liked this horse as a potential ultimate type, even though we know the Irish horses don't do so well in there, but ground went against him. They had a couple of entries at Aintree as well, even the big race, but they decided to go against that again. Ground would have come foul for him. Now, the reason I'm so prominent on the ground stuff with him is, I don't think he needs it to be able to act, but I don't think he can jump out of anything other than like nice ground. Anytime it's soft, he seems to make his mistakes. And I think that the ground's going to suit him down to the ground in here. He's so much better than 142 as well. Like, it's not criminal that he's rated that. He's just obviously, they've been plotting when they're going to race him, right? If he'd have had more runs this season, he'd be coming in here off of a much higher mark. But they have been waiting with him. And I think with Henry de Bromhead being the shrewd operator that he is, that is a very telling sign. They could have run him just for the sake of a run, couldn't they? But they know the next time that Am I Right runs in a handicap off of 142, he's probably going to sluice him. It's just his jumping's the worry, right? If he jumps nicely out this ground, which I predict that he will, I think he could potentially bolt up in this. But if it's not just the ground that causes the problem with his jumping, and if he was ready for March, and this is now 6 weeks later and it's a bit of an afterthought, then maybe he could bomb. So he's 9-1. That makes the choice very easy, just to throw a nice little win dart on Am I Right. So we're going to have a decent each way bet on Rapper, because it's the end of the season. I won't have to do my money on him anymore. And then we'll have a nice win saver on Am I Right as well. 9-1, I think, is a good price. I suspect this horse could end up being a bit wise guy one. I reckon he goes off a lot shorter. So there we go. One of them will win it. Maybe the forecast as well.
Maybe just that. Am I right? 9-1 shot on Rapper. I didn't want to tee it up, but I was hoping after Andrew has gone for the horse we were hoping he was going to go for, that you were going to side with Rapper then in here. 25-1 shot, a horse whose drum that Dave has been beating the chances for this horse all season. So if he comes good now, we will all do some laughing. Nick Rockett was the one then for me for Messrs Townend and Mullins. I thought that was a really solid effort on his handicap debut last time out at Fairyhouse in the Irish Grand National behind Intense Raffles. He finished 7th there. He did just get tired and fade out of things. He was really well backed though, 4-1 favourite in it. But I don't think it was anywhere near as bad a run as it looks when you see how far he was beaten, because he showed up good for a long way, but then he did just get tired quite quickly. It was a whole different ask though for him. That was just his 4th start over fences, so he's entitled to come forwards from it. And I'm pleased that they're going again then with him, rather than turning him away and just aiming him at some of the big handicaps next year, because he would have done no end of learning over the 3 mile 5 heavy ground in those conditions. So I'm really hoping that he still has plenty more to come for Nick Rockett. And I'm also just going to have a little bit of an each way play on We've All Been Poor. I think that better ground will see him to better effect. Feel that he's quite a big kind of heavy set horse, but I know he got tired and probably did ultimately get outstayed in the Ultima last time out then over 3 mile 1 in the testing conditions. But a solid run though all the same for a large part, finishing 6th, ridden that bit more prominently as well, but still a horse where I expect him to have more to offer over these proper stamina laden trips. He's not an easy horse to catch right, but one day he will probably come good again, and perhaps it'll be at 20-1 in this one. Right, that was the Bet365 Gold Cup. So Dave, I'll go back to you please for anything from anywhere else.
I haven't got anything from anywhere else. The couple more races at Sandown do look really tasty. There's a nice novice handicap chase and a nice handicap hurdle at the end of the races where Willie sends a couple over, but not had enough time to dissect them. But sure, there'll be some good bets in there if you have a look for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that select hurdle, the grade 2 at 4:10 at Sandown, looks fascinating. The matchup again between Impere Pass and Lagadan. Impere Pass has actually just been pushed out to even money now. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do with that race either. I'm still undecided. Andrew, anything from anywhere else? Hopefully the select hurdle.
No, I'm going to go to the 4:45, that novices handicap chase you mentioned, and back Persian time, Nicky Henderson's runner who ran at Air last week. I was against him that day because he's generally useless on left-handed tracks. He's had 4 goes right-handed in his life. Second to Springwell Bay at Ascot, another right-handed track expert, first. 3 wins from 4 starts. He's going right-handed again. He handles good ground well enough, probably be slightly on the soft side. Put a line through that run behind Dave's winning tip, Tommy's Oscar at Air last week when he was beaten by 29 lengths. He was a winner at right-handed Kempton the time before, and provided this doesn't come too soon, he's won after a break of 3 weeks before. So I'm hoping he'll get away with the very recent outing, and the fact that the trainers entered him is suggests that he's come out of that race well. And I've seen 11-1 about him. There's only a couple of firms betting on the race so far. That seems too big.
Okay, there you go. So too big a price. Right then, nap time. Andrew, you're up first, please, with your nap. I'm hoping it's Threeunderthurfive / trying to guess who it might be, actually. Nah, go on.
Well, I can't remember what I said apart from the race I've just talked about. So Persian time in the 4:45 at Sandown.
It was a given. It was an absolute given. Dave, you're nap.
100% Rapper in the Bet365 Gold Cup. Rapper finally gets the win for us, and at a massive 25-1.
Imagine if this comes to fruition. So you had to nap him. I can completely understand that. So I'll go the same race then. I'll take you on, and I'll go Nick Rockett in the Bet365 Gold Cup then for my own nap. But yes, so many fascinating races so this weekend. So big thank you to the lads for all of their hard work as per usual. Big thank you to our sponsors, BetMGM. Do let us know who you fancy in the comment section below. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of GG's content. Best of luck with your bets this weekend. Enjoy all the action, and we'll speak to you again next week.